greatest thing is love. When we feel like we don't have enough love and we don't have enough hope, we start losing strength to live. And the world is a hurting place, and the world needs hope, and the world needs love. Without hope, we feel like, why are we here? What's the word? Believing in something you do not see. Faith. Words can only do so much. Hugs can do much more than words. But when hugs can't do anything, that's where faith kicks in. I want to ask you today, what are you looking for?
Okay, here we are. We are continuing this series called What You Can Do. What You Can Do. And so if we haven't met, I'm Dan. I serve as the pastor here. And so if you're new here in person, met a few people new here today. Great to have you. Or if you're online for your first time connecting with us, maybe a friend invited you to participate or be a part of that. Great to have you here this morning. But in this series, if you've been with us, we're talking about what we can do, because there's a lot of things we haven't been able to do. There's a lot of things that saying you can't go here, you can't do this, stay away from those people, and we just spend a lot of time doing this, right? Limited life, right? We're feeling it limited at times. I found like this is the first morning I enjoyed wearing a mask because it was warm. I was like, we got through summer. None of us thought we'd be wearing them in the summertime, and then in the fall, so here we go. But all that we're going through and the limitations, and yet, as followers of Jesus, we're not limited. The Bible says this, that we can do all things through Him who gives us strength. Well, what are those things? There is so much. And so we spent time talking about we can love, we can bring change or experience change in our lives. We can pray, and that's why we've been doing this season of prayer, gathering with other churches, and hope you can come tonight to the prayer gathering at Blaine Christian Fellowship. And then last week we talked about we can forgive. We can't forgive, and that was a pretty heavy topic. As I interact with people throughout the week, they appreciated the message, which is great to get feedback on, but they were actually talking about like people they're needing to forgive and working through forgiveness, because I think it is really much a process of anything they're going through. It's a pretty heavy topic. And so as we turn the corner from last Sunday, and I woke up Monday morning, and just in my prayer time and devotional time, I felt the Lord, this is what I sensed Him saying to me, was it's time to take the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. Because these are heavy topics, like especially forgiveness. Like, man, it's just, we need to back away a little bit. And what the word that came out was really rest. And I didn't even really have that part of our lineup of things we're going to be doing. And really, I really feel like the Lord wants us to do that, that we can experience rest. I think of all the different things that we're trying to do and attempt to do, this is probably, for me, honestly, the toughest thing. I mean, I've had difficulty forgiving people, but I've gotten over it. But I would say this is a constant struggle that I have, is that I'm a doer all the time. Keep going. And I've always been that way. Even as a little kid, my mom would drive her nuts because we would go, I was an only child, so I went to a lot of adult functions. Like, I was dragged to anniversary parties and to weddings and to funerals, and they're just long. Sitting through a wedding and sitting through a funeral, and now I professionally do weddings and funerals. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. But it's much different being up here than you sitting here and just waiting and sitting still. And my mom would always be like, get the pinch in the ear and settle down. You got ants in your pants? That's what she used to say to me, like, ants in my pants. I don't know what she meant by that, but now that's weird. But she would say, calm down, sit still. And I just have a tough time sitting still. So this really speaks to me. And I think it kind of speak of the world we live in. And we were going through this with this pandemic, is all the different cascading events that have happened to us have left our world in a very much a place of unrest. I mean, it's been unrest in the streets because of social injustice. We've seen what the disruption it's brought to the health concerns and people scrambling and trying to find cures and all vaccines and everything. We've seen it now in our political season, and they're just like, everything's on the intensity and the unrestfulness that we're people feeling, and we don't even know, we haven't got to the election yet. What's that going to look like? And we're just we're feeling kind of on the edge of our seat in so many ways. And so when we think about where we're at, and even in the state of our world, there's not been much resolve. There's not been much progress. There's not been a feeling, and we're just kind of holding it together. And that just brings us a place of unrestlessness. I'm saying something that we all know. We all have experienced this. But we need to recognize this: getting a full night's sleep, you can wake up weary, can't you? In fact, sometimes you can feel emotionally in a worse condition than you were the day before, because now you got this, what am I going to do now? And that feeling that is there. So as much as sleep's good for the body, it doesn't always rest our soul. Rest our soul. So I want to take this today, talk about just taking the foot off the gas pedal just a bit for a moment, and just give you this one thought that we're going to unpack is this: that you're at your best when your soul finds rest. You and I are at our best, the best of what we can do when our soul truly finds rest. You know this already. You've worked out of a weary heart before. You've worked out of fatigue, and you've said things you didn't want to say. You've done things you didn't want to do. You go, and that is a lesser version of me than I want it to be, because there's a restlessness there in it, and that restlessness really has brought you a place of weariness. And we don't do well. We don't do well when we don't get rest. And here's the thing about rest is God created us to find rest. In fact, He created us out of rest. In fact, if you look at the Genesis account, God created, He was busy the first 6 days, but on the seventh day, listen what it says. This ordained day says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work and had what He had been doing. So on the seventh day, He rested from all His work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. Because of it, He rested from all the work creating that He had done. It's a powerful thing to think about, that here God, the creator of the universe, did He need to rest? No, but He models to us rest and ordains this day, this what's called the Sabbath day, for rest. And then you see how Adam and Eve, it's translated in a sense of how they experienced rest and what they did. If you look at Scripture, they were busy in the garden. They didn't just sit around and pick flowers and just hang out together. There was a work, there was a vocation that they had to do. They had a mandate. They'd be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth, but they had to tend this garden. They were at work, but the work that they did was to be very much a work that was to be joyful and fulfilling in their life up until the fall, up until they made a choice in their life. But before that, we need to know is that they lived in some ways a complete balance. And I was thinking about this in our lives is when we're living a balanced life is pretty good, isn't it? When things are in a steady, constant place, it's really good. And we crave balance. I know about you, but I want balance in my life. And it's part of nature. You think of a balanced ecosystem. You think about the seasons that we're going through. We, in the Northwest, get to experience that. I was talking to someone the other day from California. I ran into her at Woods, and she's talking about like in California, it's like hot or cold. There's not a lot of seasons, but we get to experience it. But we can experience the autumn trees and the leaves. I don't know if there's any leaves left after yesterday's wind, but it's beautiful. But what we're looking at in these beautiful leaves is they're dead. It's beauty of death. That's what's happening. But there's a cycle that goes on, and we need this even in our own bodies. Our physical bodies need equilibrium. I can horribly get sick, in a backseat of a car or a van when I get motion sickness really bad. I really appreciate having equilibrium. We do this with our minds. We want things to be equal out when it comes to a state of mind or a balanced perspective. This place of homeostasis, you call it. It really is that idea of bringing wholeness. The buzzword right now is mindfulness, right? We all want experiences at times. In fact, even when we worship the Lord, we're called to love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. Sounds like a balanced approach even as we worship God. But what I find is interesting as we strive for a balanced life, we don't always live that way, do we? We somehow, here I think this is the irony, is there's this human tendency also to push it farther, to take extremes in our life. We look at times where we they talk about pedal to the metal. Some of us guys love to go fast until you're, ooh, okay, that's not a good thing. That's not, but we like that. We like the need for speed. Some of us, we find that we're working really, really hard. How hard are you working? I'm really working hard, and we're striving so much. We use the phrase "burning the candle at both ends," and somehow we kind of wear it as a badge, that we're working really hard. But all that work and all that pushing, what we find is we get exhausted, and actually is unhealthy for us. So a balanced life is really important to have, and yet with Adam and Eve, because we could blame ourselves for doing that, but really goes back when I mentioned the fall. Is in the fall, what happened is their work that brought fulfillment and joy and in purpose in life ended up turning into toil, and in turning that work became actually a chore, and really call it a curse. The curse of sin brought work is difficult and days are difficult. And we see this kind of translated over in the next couple of chapters where it plays itself out. You can almost call it the curse of the restless soul. In Genesis 4, where Cain, the parents of Adam and Eve, and they had Cain and Abel. Cain kills his brother Abel. Why did he kill him? Is because he's jealous of him, because God was blessing him. Well, Abel gave the best offering to the Lord, and Cain gave the worst of what he had to the Lord. And so God comes along and he punishes Cain. He not only for the murder of the brother, but he puts a curse on Abel. He says this, the Lord said, "What have you done? Listen, now you're under a curse, driven from the ground, which opens its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand." So this is what he says to him. He says, when you work the ground, then here's the punishment. It will no longer yield its crops for you, and you will be a restless wanderer on the earth. A restless wanderer on the earth. That's what sin does. It causes us to wander. It causes, you think about how we wander away from the straight path, and we think about, taking the crooked way, and, just towards sin, and that person's a crook. Well, what it is, they're going opposite. They're wandering off God's will, but there's a wandering that happens, always seeking, always looking, always trying to bring satisfaction to our lives, but it's never enough. There's a constant state, in fact, of dissatisfaction. We're interested in everything, but satisfied with nothing. That's you and I watching Netflix going, there's actually, it says here, 10,000 shows to watch, and I can't find anything to watch. It's a constant state of need. So what happens in our state of restlessness is that we're anxious, we're tense, we're worried, we're concerned. Our minds cannot shut down, and that's when you lay in bed and you can't go to sleep. Or I don't know about you wake up in the morning and your brain starts working, but your body doesn't. Has your body ever said to your brain, "Shut up. Just shut up"? And I'm like, I literally hear my body and my brain, and then there's me in the middle going, you guys just need to get along here. I think I'm losing it. And I'm just laying here at 3 a.m. What's going on? Is that just, I tell you, this message is for me. But we're in that constant state of restlessness and not satisfied. And so if you're at that place and I'm at that place, I want to give you yeah, I kind of relate with this. Well, let me help you kind of narrow it down a little bit. If you're a person that struggles like I struggle, here's some warning signs of a restless soul. The first is, and these are all obvious things, but you could add to the list, but one of the things I've noticed about myself is when there's lack of margin. I noticed that I'm restless when there's lack of margin. On a notebook paper, you got the margin where you can write in. There's no white space, and I find that especially when we've been in at home. Some of us are still working from home quite a bit, and you're doing it. Maybe you're watching from home, and now you're going to have to work this week from home. And so what I found is before I would have meetings, I would get in a car and I'd drive to a meeting, meet with that person, go to another meeting, and I had margin in between my meetings. I wasn't talking to anybody. I wasn't doing anything. There was breaks that happened. But I found when I was doing Zoom meetings, one after another, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no breaks. And lots of coffee, and no potty breaks, okay? We've got to stop here for a while. I got to pause here. I got to stop my video, okay? And some of you have had to do this, like there's no margin, especially for school right now, right? There's the bed, and then there's school. It's like that. Here's the table. There's no breaks in it. And somehow, when we have this lack of margin, it brings us a sense of restlessness. And I want to encourage us too, is like there's time management, there's energy management. So I can manage my time pretty well. I do pretty good, but my energy, not so much. I could have a meeting with somebody or talk with somebody, and you're just drained. Like you were 100%, had all the energy, and now you're like, 2%. You're like, what just happened? It's because we need to learn and find that if there's not margin, we get pretty worked up, don't we? And what can lead to is this, another way of kind of just searching and wandering in a restless soul, is that we seek entertainment to escape. So we try to find a way to take the pressure off, and so we turn to things, and what we find is the entertainment amuses us, but doesn't really give us rest at all. We can binge watch something, and it really kind of feel more depressed after we've done that. And you think about this, 150 years ago, people got up when it was daylight, and they went to sleep when it was dark. That was it. That was the schedule. There's nothing really needed a watch. There wasn't anything you do. If you're a farmer, you might have to get up a little earlier to milk cows and to do certain things. But pretty much, you were on this cycle. It was very, very simple life. Was life easier back then? Oh, it was differently hard. But they found as though, this is American Medical Association have found that they did an article, and they found that people are like 3 times more stressed than the previous generation. And much has to do with technology. Much has to do with looking at the screen. Our challenge right now is looking at the screen during the day, because we're working there or going to school, and then at night we're entertaining ourselves. And all that blue light that's basically on the screen is not good for us. It actually is stimulating the brain so much, overstimulating the brain, that we can't find really rest physically. And so we're trying to do some good sleep hygiene, is like hour before, maybe 2 hours before, not have any screens on at all. Read a real book and do that. And last night, my wife was reminding me of that. Like, I thought we were going to take some time just to decompress and do this. So important. More than technology is, if we're using that to escape, to try to bring rest, it's not working. It's not working. And what ends up happening, not getting rest, is this: it leads to impulsiveness. And I think buying and eating and drinking, spending, it can happen so quickly. We can just click, and we're never going to be satisfied, are we? And which leads to this is agitation. I found when I'm restless and when I'm working through things internally, I'm not the most pleasant person to be around. And maybe for you as well. I don't know if you found yourself like agitated, and when somebody in your family is doing something, like, why don't they close all these cupboard doors? Why are the lights on? You're chewing gum too loud. Like, that's like a huge character flaw I have. I'm chewing gum too loud. Like, there's something going on the inside, right? And if you're feeling like you're a lesser version of yourself that way, that's a huge sign. This aggravation or agitation that's there. It's really saying maybe your soul's a bit troubled. And I think one of the things also I found is hurry. It's almost like a disease, isn't it? Hurry is, and sometimes you don't allow a lot of margin, so you're moving one thing to next thing. But I found myself, I'm in a hurry and I don't need to be. I'm like, where's the quickest line? I'm like, I don't really have a place to go, but I'm in this hurried state. Somehow I'm trying to get all this stuff done, and at the end I'm going, was it really worth it to hurry through it? And what I found with me is that I make a lot of mistakes. Look back in your life. Look back in the decisions that you made. Were they a lot of reactionary situations of what you said and what you did and what you signed? You're going, oh, I have regrets. I have buyer's regret. Why did I do that? Because I did it on a whim, or I wanted it so bad that I got it, and I didn't consider all the alternatives. Hurry can actually hurt. Can it hurt you, and it can hurt others. It actually brings out the worst in you. John Ortberg sums it up, and he says, hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life. in our day. Hurry can destroy our souls. Hurry can keep us from living well. I've used that quote over and over. It's a reminder us we're not living well when we're in hurry, in a state of restlessness. Well, hurry turns to worry, which is anxiousness. And that happens where fear is a reaction to danger, which is good to have. Don't do stupid, don't jump off this. You've got fear of heights. That's good sometimes. But anxiety is almost a state of mind. So we continually get compulsive in a state, and it's a loop that's hard to get out of. And I've learned through my counselor at times, I remember talking to him a few years ago, he went through a lot of grief and a lot of situations. I saw somebody, he says, when we go through grief or we go through stress or go through anxiety, is our bodies don't know how to process that. Our organs that are designed to process food and air and, things and deal with toxins that come in, he says, but the body doesn't know how to deal with that. And so what happens is our body reacts, and of course the body doesn't lie. And so if you've got a headache or you've got indigestion or you've got like heart pain, or if you have like pain in your spine, all those are signs and symptoms of stress because your body doesn't know how to react to that. So worry, stress, and strain, and it leaves us fatigued. And all our hurrying and rushing and trying to do, Jesus gives us this question. He says, who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? Well, it's all the little things, right? The little things that add up to become the big things in there. And when we get to that place, we're in a danger point. And it can lead to despair and depression. And I think we get caught up is that we're thinking we're trying to be more self-sufficient, but really what's happening, we need to be soul-sufficient. And really we have a soul deficit. And it's because of this issue of restlessness that's there, a restless soul. So what do we do? Where do we go? Well, we go to the one, and we know the source that we turn to. And I love what Psalms 62:1 reads, and I want to read it out loud to us. I want this to sink in our soul, and a reminder of where do we truly find solace. Will you read this with me? And if you're watching online, I encourage you to read it out loud. And I know you're like by yourself maybe, and you're watching this, or maybe this week you're in your car and you're listening to this. Say these words in the scripture out loud. You can do it in the room here. Say it with me. Read it with me. My soul finds rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. My soul rests. Your soul rests. And my soul rests in God alone. It's not in a person. It's not in a purchase. It's not in a significant other relationship. It's not in your job. It's not in the new home that you bought. It's not in the new vacation you're clicking and buying. It's not in the presidential candidate that you want. Okay, I'm just saying. It's not in those things. No, my trust is, my hope is, my soul and my very salvation only comes from God. Everything on the outside will not satisfy me. That's awesome, right? And yet, I think we can relate at times that our souls get weary. I love how Isaiah reads for us when we get to this place. What do we do? This is what he says. We know it's in God, but we struggle. He says this, do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary. His understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary, increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Isn't that good news? Isn't that great news to remind us of this? When we are restless and we're tired and weary, God is not. When we are running out of brain power, running out of what do I need to do? I don't know what to do. His understanding no one can fathom. When we are so bone tired and we're weary and we're having difficulty even just having the strength, even the emotional energy, it's that He gives us strength when we are weak. And when we do that, he says that we can mount up like wings of eagles, that we can fly, that we can rise above it all, to get above it all. If there's anything that we need to do as followers of Jesus, as citizens of heaven this week, partnering God's kingdom, and what matters is rising above all. It doesn't mean we're better than other people. Don't get me wrong on that. We still got to live on this earth, and we got to pray, and we got to vote, and we need to do our work that we're here, that we're called to do, and the responsibilities that we have. But as we rise above it all, we're going, no, Lord, I trust in you. I trust, and my hope is in you, God alone, whom I trust. And we can do that, and we can look to it because that hope is embodied and incarnate in the person of Jesus Christ. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. He is the one that can bring rest to our weary and worn out and wandering soul. And he gives an invitation to each one of us to follow him. He invites us into this relationship that we can have that is growing and continuing. And he did that, and he accomplished that relationship that put us together through the cross and what he accomplished. In a couple minutes, we have it in our chairs. We're going to have communion. And if you're watching online, I encourage you to get ready, get some juice or crackers, toast or coffee, do something, just to have something in front of you, because we're going to share communion here in a couple minutes. But what it is this culmination of this invitation that he gives and continues to give to us. And I find when I read this invitation, you're going to know the invitation. You've heard this already in your life. You've been a follower of Christ for a while. It's a beautiful invitation. But the invitation is interesting. It caught me every time I read this, that there's a word that says easy. That Jesus gives us something easy. And I thought, man, I love easy. That's the only time in the Bible, and in fact, Jesus himself says this word easy. Well, what's easy? If you're like me, and like, I struggle to find rest. I struggle to have calmness in my life. All it's swirling, all it's going on. He says these words, and you probably, again, you know these words, they're just a reminder to us, but this invitation, he says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened. What does he say? I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon me. Learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Come to me. This invitation, come to me. Come into this relationship I have with you. And he says it's easy. Well, we got to look at this word easy. Easy is a soul word. It's not a circumstance word. Easy, if you think of something that's easy on the outside, you're going to be disappointed. Like, if I do this, my life's going to be easy. It's not. You're going to be really struggling as I'm going to struggle. But Jesus invites us to something that he says is easy. That it's not burdened down, this relationship he has with us. And the yoke, it's not an egg yoke, it's not a center of an egg. It's this harness, right? That we're harnessed with Jesus. Just like an oxen is plowing a field. What they would back in the day, it refers to one oxen being stronger than another oxen. So they put the weaker one that's new at plowing fields. It needs to be trained up. They put it with more experienced one. And what they're trying to do is show, hey, to bring balance to what needs to be done in life. The plowing of the field. And it just reminds us of this place of balance that the Lord, even way back in the garden, where he wants to bring spiritual, homeostasis, this equilibrium. And what it was is so that we find that in our life. And we're off, you've been off before. You wake up the wrong side of the bed, or you're grumpy all day, or you're going, man, that person's off. What is it? Because they're not living this balanced life. And Jesus says, I want to come and I want to help you. I want to help carry the burden that you have, the portion of your life that you're called to carry. Don't read this wrong and saying, Jesus says he's going to come and this invitation take burden. He's like, okay, Jesus, here you go. Man, I don't have to do anything. Isn't that great? Jesus is going to do it for me. No, it doesn't work that way. He says, take my burden. Hey, you've got a portion that you still need to carry, but you don't have to carry all of it. In fact, I'll carry a lot more than you can, than I can handle it all. I got big shoulders. He says, I want to come along and help you along the way. I want to help you carry. I want to take that responsibility. You don't have to be weary. You don't have to have a place of restlessness in this, because I think what restlessness does, we're trying, it brings us weariness. He says, no, I want to provide this for you. And then he says, learn from me. Learn. What am I to learn? Well, it's the apprentice-teacher relationship, just like the older oxen trains the younger oxen. Jesus says, I want to train you as well. Learn from me, because the yoke is not just, it refers to the oxen in plowing a field, but also it was called the yoke of teaching that a rabbi would place on a young apprentice. And he says, hey, come follow me and come follow my ways. Let me show you. And he give him basically his interpretation of Scripture, or how he goes about his spiritual life. And Jesus saying, learn from me. Let me show you how to do this. Come follow me. And that phrase, it was Jesus did that inviting his disciples. That was something that the rabbis would do. Come follow me. And what he's saying is, come, let me show you the way. Let me show you how to do this. My way of teaching, my words that I have, I want to show you along the way. And he says, I'm not a jerk about it. I'm not a religious person that's going to, wait for you to mess up and screw up, and now you're shame. He's like, okay, you learned something here. Let's move on. Follow me in this pathway. And so that's why I love what it reads in this invitation in the Message. Listen to the same passage. And let's just make this practical. He says this, are you tired? Are you worn out? You burn out on religion? Jesus says, come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take, I love this, a real rest. You ever had a nap? I took a nap the other day, and it was just like, spiritual. Like, wow, I feel like a different person. Walk with me, work with me, watch how I do it. Learn, I love this, the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitted on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn, listen, to live freely and lightly. Ooh, doesn't that sound good right now? Just live freely and lightly. It's almost like a butterfly floating through the air. Like, is that possible? Is that what he's... No, there's something there to rise above it all. In this, I love this phrase, in this unforced rhythm of grace. How do you have that? Well, you got to create space for it. You have to be intentional. I have to be intentional to do that in my life as well. I'm going to invite our team to come as we prepare for communion. And really, communion is just a culmination of everything that we're talking about. What Jesus, the reason he gave this invitation to us is because he accomplished so much on the cross that we will be sharing in a moment and having a time of reflection of all that God's done. But this invitation that he gives us is powerful. And it's something that's daily, but also I would encourage you to do weekly. This unforced rhythm of grace. And so here's our spiritual practice. By the way, we try to not just inspire you, but actually give you something to do during the week, because I don't know about you, I can hear something very inspiring going and not do anything with it. What was the point? So we try to offer a spiritual practice. And this week's spiritual practice is to set aside space for a Sabbath rest. Set aside space for a Sabbath rest. I try to practice this on a weekly basis. I take Fridays off, and it's my Sabbath day. And my day is, somebody's like, I thought it was Sunday. It's like, I'm a pastor. This is a game day here. I'm not resting at all. None of these guys are. Well, you have to find time in your week and your day. Maybe it's your Saturday. Find a day, and for some of you right now, maybe find an evening where you're going screen-free. You're checking out, and you're creating some space. See, reminder, God did this. God at the very beginning created the entire world, and then he says, did God really need to do that? He modeled it to us. He says this idea of Sabbath is not a requirement. Oh, I've got to be quiet on Sunday, or I got to, some of you grew up with the Sabbath is like, I can't have any fun on the day. That's religion, right? Sabbath is actually, in the Hebrew word, it actually also means delight. It's a special day. Sabbath is not a requirement, it's a gift. Through Christ, we have this gift of rest that he's offering. And what he's saying is, let's not miss this, that our work and then everything doing, that we can live a Sabbath life. that in our work, even though there's toil and we're living in this sinful world and we got to work hard and there's, all that goes on, that we can actually find rest. But one of the patterns of finding rest is a rhythm of taking Sabbath. And I encourage you to do that. And the way to do this is, I wanted to give you something, like 4 practical pieces to Sabbath that I try to practice. You can create your own rhythm on how you're going to do this, but this might be helpful. The first R is relinquish. And I encourage you in your week where you're just letting go of the responsibilities of the job, your vocation that you do, the job that you do, that you have a day off, that you are not working. Now, some of you punch in, you punch out, it's easy to do that. But for some of you, you might own a business, or you're a manager, or you're doing something as a leader, a pastor. And it's hard. It's not just not doing the work, it's hard shutting this work off right here. That's very, very difficult. And the greatest way is don't have this in front of you or anything else, and to check out. And to relinquish it means to let go. And that's a form of trust. Say, God, you're going to take care of my business over here and the work I've got to do because I'm trusting you with it. And to remind us that God's more important and you're not more important. You're not that important to be working all the time. It's going to wear you out. So relinquish control of it. And the other one is reflect. Take time. Oh my goodness. It is a crisp day, but a beautiful day. Take a short walk or look outside or park somewhere. This morning, I came early, but we got some heat on hopefully in this building. And I remember going Semiamu, and I saw the sun come over Mount Baker, and it was beautiful. It was this moment that I had with God. Create places and spaces to have that opportunity. Recreate, meaning your Sabbath time is not just sleeping all day. That's kind of depressing, but it's actually doing something productive. I find that my day, I'm not doing church work. What I do is I've been building fences. I've been doing different things that I love working with my hands because I'm working with my brain and my mouth all week. Find some things you can create. This week, carving pumpkins with kids or grandkids. Come to the trip or treat on Friday. Plan some things that are fun. And when you do that it restores you. That's the final one, restores. I love Psalms says, he leads me by still waters and restores my soul. So what are you doing in your week that's restorative? You depleted yourself. Now what you're doing is I remember Hillary, you were sharing about your family. You went up to Mount Baker and the beauty of the hike, and it's restorative. You're looking at nature and you're experiencing this. You're like, find different things that can restore your soul before you get drained every week. It's very, very practical. But you got to plan for it and you got to do it. But all those things we can do, we have this rest, is because our souls can be rest because of Jesus and what he did on the cross that provides that for us. That there's no wandering the earth any longer in our sinful ways. That through the cross we have come together, that Jesus brought complete balance. Think about the balance. Literally, he's on the cross suspended, in the air, bringing balance to the universe. Because of our sin, we were off. We had a debt that we couldn't pay. We had a load that we never could take care of. We had an emptiness that we never could fill. And Jesus provided all that for what he accomplished. And so I want to invite you, if you're in the room here, go ahead and grab your cup. And if you're watching online, grab your communion as well. And I told the last service too, I think I clipped my fingernails the night before we do communion. And so there's a little thin, there it is right there. We got a little wafer and cracker and juice here. And so just have it ready here in a moment. Don't eat or drink yet, because this is what I want you to do. I'm going to ask you this final question, and then we're going to come together and do this, partake as a family. I want to ask you online as well. Is your soul well? Is your soul well? Is it well right now? Is it, or is there something that's there that you're struggling with? Is it sin, habitual sin that you're struggling with? Is it something that you're burdened with that you can't shake? There's a worry, there's a concern, there's so many things that are weighing you down. I want to tell you, Jesus, all that he accomplished, not only take care of your sin, he took care of your worry on the cross for you to find true rest. So I want to encourage you, take some time of confession. Take some time to just spend some time with the Lord here for a moment or two before we